Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
So DeSantis is out, and things aren't looking too good for Nikki Haley. Should we be preparing for the Trump versus Biden rematch now?
Well, so much for my pick of a Trump-Nikki Haley ticket.
Was that a prediction?
And no, I thought it made, it depends on what you sold me. I am sold on Sarah Huckabee Sanders as the perfect choice. I really am. If he's going to go that route, even over Governor Noem. So, but Youngkin still makes great sense in Virginia. But he made comments that he doesn't think she's going to be the choice. It really begs the question, David, of the old days. Remember when you ran your primaries to your base and then you spread out in the general? Now you can't do that. People will view you as some kind of a Republican and name only kind of a thing. And you get into these heated battles in the primary and then you just can't mend these fences in this day and age.
Again, historically, all of this is context of history. And there are seasons in American history and there's seasons in the political understanding of the players at the top. And Donald Trump was an outsized character when he came down the escalator. And his administration was something that no one could look away from. I mean, what he was attempting to do was bold. It was awkward. It was disruptive. Then COVID turned the world upside down. And people have felt like there really this isn't a sequel. It's the idea that it's finishing what got broken, what couldn't get started or couldn't get finished. So there's a sense of unfinished business out there. And it's a hard trend to run against, which is where I think DeSantis made his mistake in not understanding the times.
And Nikki Haley kind of did people are going to probably despise her that love Donald Trump, but that was the play. We're better than 280-year-olds. Donald Trump did a great job, but it's time to move on now. We had said about a year ago, will the Republican Party feel like, yeah, we want Donald Trump's policies because they work and they match the platform. We just don't want all the nonsense that goes along with it. And then we talked about how there has to be a Donald Trump 2.0. Well, you're right. There was no expiration date on the shelf life. And I think he has managed to show some real significant steps towards being a Donald Trump 2.0.
Well, one thing that's happened for certain is by this happening as quick as it has with DeSantis getting out, it has changed the dynamics. It's gone from a short field or a medium-sized field. Now we're back to a long field because it's January. It is right at the moment of New Hampshire. And Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. There's no one left to get in his way in any way, shape, or form. So that changes the dynamic. So now you got to recalibrate and recalculate all of that stuff in regards to the computer. I think it's fascinating that DeSantis dropped out before New Hampshire.
I didn't think he would. I thought I would have probably known the writing on the wall after Iowa. But when he went to New Hampshire, I thought, well, he'll probably wait and see how he does and maybe get out or more likely go on to South Carolina and then lose there. But by doing this, now keep in mind, we got Rick Scott now, who began this race, out of the race, completely behind Trump. Ramaswamy, completely out of the race and completely behind Trump. DeSantis, completely out of the race now and completely behind Trump. You want to do a reverse on this? How about the little island that Christie and Haley are on? What's their future?
Well, and that's I think one of the big reasons why DeSantis dropped at the moment that he did, because now Haley she's trapped. She has to go in to her home state of South Carolina. And with DeSantis's support now going to Trump, it just seals the fate that she can't win in South Carolina.
And you don't bring up Ramaswamy, and I understand why, because it's usually 5-6 percentage points, but he does very well with youth. Trump, that's a bullseye area for him, South Carolina. And then you add the DeSantis and then Rick Scott, quite frankly. So, don't forget, it's not just Trump, and that's huge. That's 99% of it. But, you go into South Carolina, you got Tim Scott's support, you got DeSantis's support, Ramaswamy's support. Trump already does well there. Things are looking bright for Donald Trump beyond New Hampshire.
Yeah, so now, interesting, DeSantis probably never should have gotten in. What he should have done is waited and waited and waited and always been the one people were wishing for. And then if it looked like Donald Trump was going to be in trouble in court or wasn't going to be able to make it, then he comes in to rescue the day. And that's a sure winning honeymoon. As it was, he came in and went right into the Vitamix and got chewed up like everybody else, because to read the room effectively, we got to recognize the fact that people aren't yet done with Donald Trump. That's the general feeling in the public. So, okay, so he's out. He's out 48 hours before New Hampshire. By getting out that way, he's now going to let Haley, if he'll let me borrow a line from Chris Christie, he's going to let Haley get smoked in her home state. So now the question becomes, what's John Podesta going to do now that the campaign is a long field and it looks like there's really nothing left for the Democrats to do about Donald Trump unless they get a significant felony conviction prior to the convention or to the election? So now it's Podesta's play.
Well, he's got Virus X out there. I guess that's
wow. Yeah, you noticed that, huh?
Yeah, I did. There's the old playbook, Virus X. I think at this point, you keep using the expression long playing field. I know what you're thinking, probably sooner rather than later. But you could do it at the convention, all the way to the convention. I noticed the stories are starting to drip on Michigan being a problem. And the Washington Post came out with another op-ed piece. There's trouble on the ground in Michigan. We just can't win this with Joe Biden. So it makes you wonder, again, you like to use history as the context. Well, history would point to LBJ, because at this point, LBJ was still in it. Robert Kennedy was still backing him. Different time. Conventions had a lot more weight than they do now. They're usually a formality now. But it's really Joe Biden's call to make, and he should have made it by now. So if he doesn't by South Carolina, then I think you got to take it all the way to the convention and make your switch there, or you play Virus X or whatever the next shadow campaign to save democracy is. I don't think you don't have that same play with the good old man that used to be a vice president, a longtime senator, and he'll calm all the rhetoric down. That has expired.
Well, I think they've got two plays. I think they're stuck with Biden now. You just can't pull an incumbent president out of the White House. I don't know how they can possibly pull that off. Biden would have to have a significant health event that would become publicly well known. Then that would be a situation. So they would have to orchestrate it along that line. And boy, that's a lot of manipulation at that stage in the game. We're looking like the movie Dave. I mean, it's just wow.
David, we've been living the movie Dave for 3 years.
Well, that and Weekend at Bernie's. I'm not exactly sure which one.
Well, there are days it's Dave. There's days it's Bernie.
When you subscribe to 1850 Main Street, you're the first to find out what's happening next with new guests, publications, and events. And when you spread the word about 1850 Main Street, you're helping others find real answers to the real questions facing America right now. To learn more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. And please, tell a friend.
But then the other two things is if they've got to work through the candidate that they've got. Now, remember, his basement this time will be the White House. So it's a much better set of accommodations. And so if they could beat Trump from the basement, I've got to believe that some of their strategists are saying we can beat Trump from the White House if they've got enough momentum. I don't know if they're going to get the legal momentum that they're hoping for and that they're wishing for. I think they're going to give that everything they can. But after that, they're going to have two key issues. Abortion will be the first one. And then you're right. There's is the potential of Virus X, Pandemic X.
And Pandemic X is, I said Virus X, but yeah, it's technically called Pandemic X. And this came up actually before COVID. There was a time COVID was Pandemic X. Mm-hmm. So here comes the World Health Organization with the latest mention of a pandemic X. And all pandemics X, if you go study it and go read all up on it, none of it's real. None of it's happening. It's just suggesting, oh, there are any number of our top 5 viruses we're keeping a lookout that are animal-based, but at any time could become. So, when you brought up Podesta right away in my ADD mind, I've got them in the lab trying to figure out how to get it into the human genome.
Sure. Well,
it's kind of how it happened the first time, wasn't it? When we go back and look at it. But I watched a documentary that you always felt like this would be an effective conversation for people to overhear because it happens so often on the golf course. Well, this is going to be a real golf course moment. So hang on and follow me on this. And it was on Yogi Berra. And I had never seen it. It's called It Ain't Over. It's a Sony documentary on the life of Yogi Berra told by his grandchildren and children, with a lot of other people from Billy Crystal to Vince Scully and Joe Garagiola, just Tony Kubek, everybody you can imagine. And what fascinated me, by the way, this documentary made me cry 3 times. When's the last time a documentary made you cry? Moving moments. So the documentary begins with a 2015 All-Star game with Joe Buck on the PA announcing the 4 greatest baseball players still alive. And they introduced Johnny Bench, Sandy Koufax, Willie Mays. Why am I blank? Oh, and Hank Aaron was still alive. So Yogi's granddaughter turns to her grandpa and she goes, "Papa, are you dead?" And Yogi, in his famous Yogiism, "Not yet." And that's how the documentary begins. If the documentary had stopped right there and you had turned to me in a golf cart and you said, "Come on, Michael, I know it's his granddaughter, but Yogi Berra wasn't better than Willie Mays. Yogi Berra wasn't better than Sandy Koufax. Yogi Berra wasn't better than Johnny Bench, a fellow catcher. Yogi Berra," I might have agreed with you. Do you know statistically it's not even a conversation? He's better than all 4 of them, and night and day better than Johnny Bench. No one else has 3 MVPs in that group. He does. He has as many all-star appearances, a lifetime average of over 300. They highlighted one season in 1956 where Yogi Berra, the leader of the team, and anybody would tell you that, including Mantle, the leader of the team, he had a 328 batting average. He had 28 home runs. He had 112 RBIs. Do you care to take a wild guess how many strikeouts Yogi Berra had in an entire Major League Baseball season with 28 home runs and over 112 RBIs and batting 328? 12 strikeouts the entire season. Why do I bring up Yogi Berra in the middle of this? I know you're probably screaming inside your head, because sometimes perception really is reality.
Sure.
And in the case of Yogi Berra, to the cartoon that nobody shared any money with him and he lost in court because his real name wasn't Yogi, it was a nickname and he didn't copyright it. A mistake David Zanotti would have never made. No, I'm kidding.
Not after some of the experiences I had with other organizations. Yeah.
That made me chuckle. No, but I mean, we made a clown out of him. He was one of the greatest physical catchers, hitters in Major League Baseball, and one of the best Yankees who ever lived, on a team where people only knew DiMaggio, and don't even get me started on the rest of his life. He and Joe Garagiola knew each other since they were 2 years old. They lived right across the street from each other. They were both offered a deal with the St. Louis Cardinals. Garagiola took it. They offered twice as much money for Joe Garagiola than they did for Yogi Berra, and he was insulted, so he didn't go, and he ended up signing with the Yankees. But he was in the minor leagues for the New York Yankees in Norfolk, Virginia, and World War II breaks out. And what does Yogi Berra do? Leaves the baseball field. He didn't get any of the money anyway. He sent it home to his father and walked right in and enlisted. And he was on the boats heading into Normandy on D-Day. I mean, this guy was just extraordinary. What is 2, 3, or you talk about that 100-year history generations, think of Yogi Berra? His stupid sayings. He's a clown. He's a beer pitcher, insurance pitcher, whatever commercial pitcher. He was one of the greatest baseball players, and I'm one of the greatest baseball fans, and it got by me. So the problem is Joe is in Joe's case, he's both perceived and is cognitively impaired. He is not the same old as Donald Trump. He does have two proxy wars in Ukraine and Israel and Iran just having a field day playing him up. And he's got a border crisis that he's made worse, inflation that isn't going down as fast as it should be. And he's got nothing but programs that are out of touch with the American people that continue to hurt the economy. He has set the table. If he does an LBJ and get out of the way, then they need to introduce a candidate. I don't think they can wait till the convention, and I don't think they can leave it an option. You and I have felt this way all the way from the beginning. Go with Joe. The electoral map speaks for itself. I don't know that it does. He's got to LBJ and get out of the way.
Well, I don't think they have anybody. And so at this stage,
well, there's still a first lady named Michelle Obama floating around out there. There's still Gavin Newsom floating out there. They got a governor they're pretty excited about in Maryland. It might be,
But none of those people are running for the office. And so they don't either want it or don't want to work to get it. So how are they going to get the nomination? Unless there's some reason like Biden walking away or a health issue that requires Biden to be removed. And at this stage in the game, Biden clearly wants a second term. So he's a problem for them. If they really think that they've got to get him out to win the election, they're stuck. They're stuck.
All right. So all we've talked about in reality is how Tim Scott didn't make it. He's behind Trump. Ramaswamy didn't make it. He's behind Trump. Christie didn't make it. He's behind Haley. Haley doesn't look like she's going to make it, but she's still in it. And DeSantis is now officially out, and he's behind Trump. All we've really painted the picture of is what we felt was a 90% proclivity anyway that Trump would get the nomination.
But not in January. And that's the big difference because time matters. Time matters in a presidential campaign. So now the Republicans' plate is set. Now the ball is in Podesta's court, no pun intended. So the question is, can they create the Justice Department hope-for result of taking Donald Trump out through a felony conviction, which would then have to bring everybody back in and create total chaos in the Republican Party? Or more likely, are they going to simply be happy with three letters, D, A, and X? Trump's a dictator. That's the number one issue of the campaign. Abortion is the only chance that we have. And so we will play the reality that America is in a crisis over abortion and only Joe Biden can solve it or the Democrats can solve it. And then the potential of pandemic X. So we'll put X right now as pandemic X. That right now looks like the play that they're going to make on the long field.
Yeah, Dex. In terms of the felony, I mean, it only takes one to stick, right? There's 91 crazy charges.
Right.
Could there be something else that they've had up their sleeve all along?
Well, I think from a timing perspective, no. I think they're smart enough to know that to throw everything they could on the table as fast as they could.
It's got to be one of those 91.
Yeah. It's like you got 91 to pick from. Right now, because no one can keep up with 91 separate sets of charges, there's no way of really knowing if there is anything that's likely to stick in a court of law when you actually have two sides arguing it instead of just the media telling you why Donald Trump is the devil. So it's highly debatable. In fact, they haven't got it yet. And so this is the long field. This is what Podesta now has to play with. And at this stage in the game, I think the surprise is he's stuck with Biden. He is stuck with Joe Biden. He's still writing checks inside the Biden White House. And there doesn't seem to be any apparent rift between Podesta, Soros, and the major single party media money machine that is the Biden campaign, that will be the Biden campaign, and Joe Biden. There doesn't seem to be any tear in the fabric.
Well, you could always flip the field on him and pretty much let the writing state and the perceptions be. Now my Yogi Berra analogy seemed way too long for the simple point, but now you flip the field. You turn right around and go, look, we know the American people feel that the president's too old. He's made a mess of the border. He's made a mess of the economy. Hasn't done well in foreign policy. Looks like Donald Trump is going to win this presidency. If you want to stop him and you want to stop fascism and you want to stop the overreach on abortion and into women's rights and you want to protect us from pandemic X, you got to help us win Congress to keep this devil in check. Wouldn't that flip the stage a little bit?
Well, that's clearly the plan that they will articulate and execute no matter who the nominee is.
Because all the energy on the right is focused on the presidency.
Right.
Nobody's thinking about protecting their members of Congress at all.
That's the whole, and Nikki Haley's the only person that's even brought that up as far as the power of the down ticket in regards to what it means for Congress. So sure, and what's ironic about that is I'll bet you'll never hear them talk about it because they just do it every single 2-year cycle. They put the majority of their focus on Congress, regardless of whether it's a presidential election year or not. So that may be ultimately their game plan. They may have already said, we have no control over this. It's absolute chaos. When they bought into Biden, they bought in just like when Trump came down the elevator, you couldn't stop it in 4 years. When they cut the deal in South Carolina on Joe Biden and they handed him the nomination, they're going to have to live with it for 2 terms. And now they've moved on to Congress. That's a good point. That might be what it is.
Isn't it interesting? This is a party that the Democrat Party that tends to major in minors, no matter what people are focused on. They misread the border in 2016. They're misreading it in 2024. So they're still not. That's a major for the American people. The economy is a major for the American people. And they want to keep telling you when things are going bad that it's really going good. And it's just not working. They can't put a spin on the foreign policy. And then what are they constantly talking about? Climate change and electric cars. And, they love to major in minors and minor in majors. And wouldn't it be hilarious if that ends up being their strength? Because you and I said this, I remember I was pacing on my driveway when we were having the conversation. And I'm like, this presidency doesn't matter. Everybody's going to be focused on it. And you and I would both take control of the House and the Senate and let them have the presidency if we were Republicans. Because it's a 4-year term that's a lame duck in 24 months anyway.
Well, what's most interesting to me is that all those things you described, the Democrat strategy, the Podesta Soros Democrat major mainline media strategy is all built on emotion. It's not built on policy. The Republicans continue to talk about policy, Trump's policies, the border, the economy, all those things. The Democrats are running on nothing but pure emotion. He's a dictator. He will end democracy. Abortion is the single most important thing in the world because it's a human right that's being denied and women are being violated in the denial of their rights. And if you let Trump or any of the Republicans back in control, another pandemic will come and you're all going to die. It's all emotion. None of it is policy driven or fact based. And that's the biggest difference. And no one seems to notice. One group is talking about emotion. One group is talking about policy.
We got a bigger problem than that. We talked about the conviction. We talked about dictator or devil. We talked about abortion. We talked about Pandemic X. We need another letter for whatever they're going to do while we're worried about the presidency, they steal the House and further their lead in the Senate.
Well, that's always their plan. That's called Article 1, and that's the plan that Republicans seem always to forget about, that Congress actually matters. Okay, I'm going to go watch Yogi. I've been waiting to watch it. I knew it was out there. I thought, when my Yankee fans and my baseball fans start talking about it, I'll watch it, but I'll do it.
So the bottom line is DeSantis is out. Nikki Haley wanted her 2-person race.
So be careful what you wish for.
On Survivor Island, it's her and Christie versus Trump, Scott, DeSantis, Ramaswamy. It looks like the party has united. You don't make predictions, but to what you alluded to, this whole thing's potentially already over, let alone over by South Carolina. So that puts the ball in the Democrat. We're about to find out what Podesta's play is, and we think it's Operation CDAX.
Yeah.
Does that pretty much summarize it?
That's it.
Well, now go watch Yogi.
All right. See ya.
See ya.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.